a question I really like to ask women is, what do you want? What do you want from your life? And for a lot of women, that is probably one of the hardest questions to answer, because for so long they have been doing everything for everyone else and not thinking about what they want. And when you dig down into that and they're like, oh, I don't know, I have no idea. I was like, okay, so push everything aside. If you didn't have to think about children and husband and finances and, oh, well, I have to think about that. No, just push it aside for a second and think about when you were a little girl. What did you want to be? What did you want to do? And then bring it back to, okay, so if all of these things were gone, what would you want to do right now? And it's interesting how it changes perspective.
Welcome to Stress-Free Solutions with Sarah. I'm your host, Sarah Elise, a stress management and fitness coach, advocating the world to trust their gut more often. I discuss various ways to manage stress and share personal stories of guest experts who have gone through the same stressors as all of you at home. Hey there, super moms of the universe. Let's play a game called hide and seek. No, not with your kids or that mysteriously vanishing left sock. It's time to seek out you in the everyday hide and seek of life. Introducing Mastering the Soul System, a 12-week journey to reclaim your time and energy. This course is your gateway to finding balance, energy, and joy in every aspect of your bustling life. Picture this, 12 weeks where the words mom and mayhem don't always go together. Rediscover yourself with every breath in our Soulful Mind Weeks. Sing out loud in the shower or car, off-key is absolutely fine, and dance during our Soulful Body sessions, and embrace the quiet whispers of your heart in our Soulful Spirit adventures. It's about time your spirit got a front row seat, don't you think? Join us on this journey. Embrace the harmony between being a dedicated mom and your personal aspirations. Mastering the soul system, because darling, in the noise, find your silence. And maybe, just maybe, a bit of that elusive thing called me time. You deserve to thrive, not just survive. So come on, slide into our world at www.livewellenhanceyou.com/soul system. Your journey back to you starts now. Simone Knego is an international speaker and award-winning author of the best-selling book, The Extraordinary Unordinary You. She's a 2-time TEDx speaker, and her work has been featured on ABC, NBC, and CBS, and in Entrepreneur magazine and Yahoo News. Her literary contributions have been honored by the National Indie Excellence Award and the NYC Big Book Award. Simone has not only summited Mount Kilimanjaro, but she is also the heart of a bustling household with 6 children, 3 dogs, and 1 husband of 31 years. As the creator of The Real Method for building unshakable confidence, Simone continues to inspire and impact teams, fostering growth and promoting self-discovery. We're thrilled to have her on Stress-Free Solutions today. So without further ado, Simone, it's so great to have you today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today.
So tell me, what decided, because you had so much going on. I can't even imagine having 6 kids. We just had our first one. What made you decide to start your own business and start speaking to the masses?
It's a great question. I actually started speaking through volunteer work. I was someone who struggled with self-doubt for years and years and years. And getting up on stage for the first time was such a big moment for me because I didn't think I had a story. I didn't realize. I mean, now I know everyone has a story and everybody needs to share their stories because that's how we can help other people. But I realized that at the time. And through that first experience, I learned that I loved being on stages. I learned I loved sharing stories, whatever they were, and really kind of drove me down this path or led me down this path that, I mean, I started off as a CPA. I mean, my background was math, and now I'm a storyteller and a writer, which is kind of hilarious.
I love that. I really love that. So, how could you say that your number work, everything you've done as a CPA, actually inspired you to take bigger action with your speaking?
I think that every moment in time, right, builds our history and builds us up to where we're supposed to be right now. I don't think if I didn't do all the things I did before this moment in time, I wouldn't be here, right? I wouldn't be doing this. I would be here, but I wouldn't be doing this. And that's what I think about accounting. I mean, I met amazing people. My best friend, who I still travel with every year, is someone that I met in school for accounting, and she is such an inspiration. So things like that, where I think a lot of times we look at things that we're going through in our lives and we think like, oh, I have no idea why I'm doing this or why this is happening. But as I look back, I feel like every step was a step in getting me to here.
Mm. Just curious, like, where did you guys or where have you guys traveled to?
Mm. We were in Sedona this past summer. We were in Sweden the year before. We've been to Italy a couple of times with them, or actually my oldest son is getting married this summer in Spain, so they're gonna be there,
Amazing.
and after Spain, we're gonna go to France. We've kind of traveled a bunch of different places in the US, and we used to, and we haven't done it in a couple of years, we used to go every year to Napa and spend a long weekend there, but things have gotten so busy, so now we're like 1 trip a year, which is summer. Hopefully, Napa will come back.
Amazing. So, having 6 kids, how are you able to balance work, your speaking engagements, while also being an amazing mom?
I think balance is a hard word, right? I think that I feel maybe different than some other people about balance. I'm not striving for balance. I'm striving to be the best I can be in the moment. So
Mm,
sometimes that means I'm all out working and my kids don't get everything that I was giving the day before, right? And
mhm,
they get it. And I think most importantly, I really want them to understand that they can do whatever they want to do. They just have to put in the work.
mhm,
And I don't wanna stand there and doubt myself about everything, because what I've realized is that whatever we do, if we feel guilty about doing something for ourselves, that's what our kids see, and guess what's gonna happen? When they grow up, they're gonna feel the same way. They're gonna be like, "Oh, I can't do that. Mom felt guilty. I'm gonna feel guilty." So, it's not saying that we're not gonna feel guilty. Inside we can, but it's really kind of showing to our kids that it's important to be able to do all of these things, and they have definitely seen that from me, and there have been times where they're like, "Are you really gonna be gone again?" But now that they're teenagers, first of all, they're teenagers, so it's not the same thing, but they also appreciate it more. I mean, I have a podcast with my 21-year-old daughter, so, like,
Yes.
they understand that all of these things I did, that I really it wasn't just for me, it's for helping other people, it's also for helping them, to help them realize what they're capable of as well.
See. So, that being said, with your 21-year-old daughter starting a podcast, you don't hear that often that someone's gonna do a podcast with their mom. So, what has that experience been like and taught you?
First of all, it's super fun, and it's such a great way to connect every week. I mean, we talk to each other every day. All of my kids I talk to pretty much every day, but I it's so interesting, our different perspectives on things. So a lot of times we align, but to see her growth, and it's funny, she just started law school, and she was saying that one of the things that has made her super confident in the classroom is the podcast, because you have to think on your feet, right? When someone asks you a question, or you have to start a conversation, you have to think on your feet. And she said that in class they have a thing where they can just call on you out of the blue, and you have to answer. It's not like you can pass. You have to be able to stand there and do it, and she said that this has really helped her with that, and I love that. Like, it just is so fun to see that, but I think when we have guests on, so we do guests every other week, they love it because it is so different, right? To have, I memean, she's 21. Most 21 year olds are like, I'm good. No thanks, mom. I mean, my other kids were like, no thanks, mom.
So your other kids, are they more into like behind the scenes kind of work, or are they in their own creative outlets?
I would say their own creative outlets. My oldest son, so he's a material science engineer. He works for Wrangler and
Amazing.
he loves like working with leather. It's so interesting. I'm like, huh, okay, that's a good one. And his fiance, she's super into ceramics and I mean, which is cool too. And then my next daughter, she's actually moving to Wales in September to go to get her master's in art conservation and restoration, which is
So
again
dope.
so yeah, so interesting. And then Olivia's in law school and we do the podcast and then the younger ones, they all have something that they love doing, some kind of outlet. So like Noah loves weightlifting and Ari just informed me yesterday that he's going out for the pickleball team at school, which is the travel
Amazing.
team. And
So
then
cool.
Millie is super creative, like such a good writer. I mean, it's so fun to watch them how I mean, you talk nature versus nurture. Obviously, in our house, since we adopted our youngest 3, it's different, but it's still like watching them figure out what they really like. And I think that's the thing as parents is that by doing other things, you expose your children to different things that they could be doing, right? So if we
Mm,
just don't feel like we can take care of ourselves or do anything for ourselves, our kids don't see that, right? They see, oh, wait, okay, there's nothing we can do out there. I think it's so important that we try different things and take some time for ourselves because I think it makes, for me at least, it made me a better mom. Still does.
yeah. We all have gone through self-doubt, and I know that's something you experienced a bit of, especially years back. So, how are you able to teach not only your children to go for their dreams and also let their fears not take over, as well as continue your own journey? Because doubt still comes up here and there.
Yeah. I mean, it always comes up, but it's not that you get rid of self-doubt, it's that you learn how to step into your confidence, you learned how to build confidence because confidence isn't something that we're born with naturally, it's a skill, we have to work on it. It's like anything else. You wanna learn a foreign language, it doesn't happen overnight, right? You have to build it, and you have to be willing to take the steps. For me, the things that work the best are positive affirmations. I'm a big fan of positive affirmations, and then I have a technique that I call control alt delete where it's learning to control our negative thoughts and reframing them because otherwise they will take over. Really having some tools in my back pocket that when things happen because my self-doubt started when I was a teenager. I had an abusive boyfriend and at the time didn't really understand the idea of respect, self-respect, and took me into my mid 40s to really work through all that and understand how that affected so much of my life. And now that I understand it, all I want to do is move forward and help other women see what they're capable of.
Incredible. Is that why you decided to write your book?
My book actually, my second book is going to be really about the confidence piece and the things that I went through. My first book was really it's part of it. Like, I wasn't so open about talking about my relationship with the abusive boyfriend back then because my kids all knew about it. But, I think as women, there's this piece with vulnerability and shame. And what I realized is that it's so important for me because of what I went through to just put it all out there. So in my first book, I talk a lot about the kids' adoptions. I talk about my climb of Mount Kilimanjaro. It really is all about realizing what you're capable of. I mean, even when we adopted our son Noah from South Korea, at the time we had already had 3 children. And I thought I knew what I needed to do to be a mom, right? I thought I had this amazing level of patience. And I had to totally start over, right? It was learning something completely different. Noah's on the autism spectrum, and I had to figure out how to be his mom, not just a mom, right? And each child is so individual.
Right.
And so I talk about that in the book as well. But it really is all about realizing what you're capable of and recognizing that the little things you do every day matter.
Hmm. What were some of the little things? And I'm hoping that people will go to Amazon and just buy your book. But I did want to ask, what are some of those little things that really helped you through
Yeah,
that?
it's really realizing that it's okay to need help, right? It's okay when someone offers. For the longest time, I would always be like, "Oh, I'm good, thanks, I'm fine." Just holding it all in there because I felt like I had to put on this facade of being really strong, and literally for years, I didn't cry because this was now my assumed persona that I had to be this really strong woman, and I am a strong woman, but I can show emotion, like, that's part of life, right? And
Mm,
so recognizing that was a huge thing because I held things in for years. But in our daily lives, I think we really don't think about how much a small gesture can impact someone. Just even saying hi to someone. I talk to everyone I see now. Like literally, if I'm on a plane, I strike up a conversation. Am I at the airport bar? I strike up a conversation, and it cracks my kids up. It cracks my husband does it now too because you never know who you're going to meet. You're going to learn something from everyone you meet,
totally.
and when you acknowledge acknowledge someone, when you really see them, I think that can be a game changer for that person, right? We have no idea what anybody else is going through. So saying hi, like randomly buying someone a cup of coffee. I've had that happen a few times in my life and I remember those moments. I will remember those moments forever because it just took me out of whatever negativity I was in the moment. I mean, those kinds of little things, talking to your neighbor. How often do we talk to our neighbors, right?
Right.
Things like that, that really we don't think they make a big deal, they can make a huge deal in someone's day.
What was one of those moments when you were traveling and maybe you were lost, maybe you were just exploring that you met someone that changed the trajectory of your day?
So, I was on a flight once, and I sat down next to a woman who was from India, and she married her husband who was from the US back in the '60s, and at the time, it was very taboo to have that relationship. Their families didn't accept it, whatever, but she had the most amazing story, and I talked to her we literally talked the entire time, and just hearing what she went through and what she accomplished, and then when we went to get off the plane, I realized I was supposed to be in the seat behind me, and I
No
was
way.
sitting in the wrong seat the whole time, so I was like, "Okay, that was meant to be, that was meant to be," and you just never know what you're hearing, especially hearing other women's stories. I mean, I trust me, I talk to men too. They have great stories, but hearing other women's stories and thinking about what other women have gone through. I mean, even my mom, for example, she went to medical school in 1961. There
Mhm.
were 120 people in her class, 5 of them were women. And
Wow.
really hearing what she went through and listening to her, how she used positive affirmations to help her get through things, it's cool. It's so fun to be able to hear other people's stories and help them realize how powerful their stories are.
100%. So, as we are continuing to dive deeper into self doubt, fears, and also just like unleashing the magic within ourselves, what would you say to someone that has been feeling a little bit stuck and unsure how to move forward to unleash that positive energy in them, that confidence in them?
I think a question I really like to ask women is, what do you want? What do you want from your life? And for a lot of women, that is probably one of the hardest questions to answer because for so long they have been doing everything for everyone else and not thinking about what they want. And
Mm.
when you dig down into that and they're like, oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I was like, okay, so push everything aside. If you didn't have to think about children and husband and finances and, oh, well, I have to think about that. No, just push it aside for a second and think about when you were a little girl, what did you want to be? What did you want to do? And then bring it back to, okay, so if all of these things were gone, what would you want to do right now? And it's interesting how it changes perspective and you can slowly dip your toe in the water. If there's something that you realize, you know what, I always did want to do that. It's not like I'm saying quit your job or whatever. It's just if there's something that you love, figure out a way to be able to incorporate it in your life, whether it's volunteer work, whether it's going to an art class, something that kind of gets you started so that you aren't just thinking, oh, I can't do this. I'm not capable of this. You absolutely are capable of anything you want to do.
What made you decide to do TED Talk?
So I really like the platform first and foremost. The idea, it's just bringing forth new ideas or a different perspective on an idea where you can just share everything out there. And I did it twice. I want to do one more actually, based on what I'm working on now. But the first one I did was about finding your Kilimanjaro, figuring out what you want. The second one I did was about talking to kids about bias. That was more of a personal one because having a multicultural family, the things that we've dealt with, and we've been very fortunate, luckily, and maybe because I'm mama bear, and if someone says anything, I'm like on top of it. But I think it's so important that our kids at a young age understand what bias is and what these little comments that people will make about other people, how damaging they can be. I mean, our words really matter. And just making sure that that's kind of out there. And so that was a personal one, but we'll see moving forward. I do want to do one more. But again, I just think it's a great platform and there are some amazing TED Talks out there.
Yeah, there really are. And I'm excited to listen to yours. It will be great. Lakeshore Drive one, was that in Chicago?
So we went up for it in Chicago. We had to record at home because it was COVID. And so everything was shut down. I couldn't even get like a recording studio. I'm literally recording in this podcasting room. This used to be the kids' playroom.
No way.
Yes. Yeah. That side still has like Legos and stuff. But yeah, I made this now this is my space. But yeah, so we had to record that one ahead of time. Both of those were like during the COVID era. So as I call it that, I don't know why, but the second one was in person, but it was so limited because they only let a few people into the auditorium because of, just still the regulations because we were in California. So for that one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's crazy how much has changed in just 4 years, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But, it's great to now be able to speak in person and go to events. What has been great for you in terms of in-person speaking again and facilitating groups?
It's really that connection piece for me. So obviously when if I'm talking over Zoom, it's different on a podcast because you're one-on-one with the person. So you can still feel that connection. But when you're speaking to a big group, you don't see them, right? And I think like that connection of seeing their expressions when you speak and being able to talk to people afterwards and have them say, you know what, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you, like, I really want to open up after you said what you said. And that's what I love. And I always say this and people are like, no, it's more than one person. But if I can help one person, that's the goal. I mean, obviously the goal is to help more than one person. But if I did help one person, that's huge for me.
Yeah. You're touching their soul. Like they're going to feel something. And then the ones that even come up to you and speak about it, and you never know, like that could have created a ripple effect. And then they're taking it and sharing it with their family or their friends. And that experience then just keeps rippling through for generations, maybe even,
Absolutely.
And same thing with a book. I've been toying with writing, but it can be a little overwhelming. When did you decide that you needed to, though, start pen to paper versus just like talk about it?
I had a lot of people ask me when I spoke, do you have a book? You should write a book. You have such great stories. And of course, I started by limiting myself. Well, I'm not a writer. I'm a CPA, and which was ridiculous. Who cares what I studied? That's not what makes me who I am.
Right.
And so I heard it enough times that I was like, you know what? I'm going to really take this seriously. And so I started writing, and I was like, oh, I feel like I have a lot to say. And then I really got some of my best stories during COVID because right when everything shut down, because all the kids had to come home and it was chaos, but I would sit on the couch in the middle of the chaos, and it reminded me of so many of our stories that I hadn't thought about in forever, that it made such a great writing environment for me. And the writing part, like once you get going, I mean, you do your outline, you start writing, that part is fine. I think for me, the most challenging part afterwards was now you have this book, getting it out there to the world, right?
Hmm.
That's the hardest part. And everybody likes to consume content in different ways. So you have your audiobooks and Kindle, and then you have your hardcover and your paperback. Like my oldest daughter, she loves everything about books, paperback, I mean, hardcovers specifically. Like she has 280 books in her room. She just reorganized everything before she's leaving next month, and 280 books. I was like,
Wow.
girl, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I just have switched over to Kindle because I was having so many books. And now that we have a kiddo, I was like, I don't know what to do with all of these.
Yeah.
I've been trying to also send them out to friends so that they can listen or, I'm sorry, read like new audio biographies, or I love fantasy. So some fantasy, and just get
Mhm.
them to, enjoy the books. Cause I was like, I
Yeah.
cannot have that many books, but kudos to your daughter for
Yeah.
figuring it out.
Yep. That's her thing. That's her thing. It's so funny. It's like every nook and cranny is like a book, but
Mhm.
looks pretty.
Yeah, no, they do. And they all have a story inside of
Mhm.
them. That's what's so great. And probably too, at the time when you're reading it, or in your case, writing that book, you remember everything that happened during that time. So it was COVID when you were writing. And that's, yeah, it then just probably triggers all those amazing memories. And that keeps you in a positive headspace. So during the COVID time and you were writing this book, what was a memory that first stuck out to you that you're like, I have to put this in the book?
So with our son Ari, with his adoption, when we went to meet his birth family, and it's not that I haven't thought about before, but just like all the details of it. And we brought the older girls with us at the time. They were still little. They were like 4 and 6. And when we got to his birth family's home, it's a mud hut. They had decorated the outside of the house with like little pieces of plants and flowers, and it was so beautiful and so heartbreaking at the same time. So we met his birth father, we met his siblings, and they had brought in some logs for us to sit on and just hear all about Ari. Ari was 4.5 at the time, and just hearing his stories. And then at the end, I think the hardest part was when we went to leave, his birth father thanked us for adopting him. And that was hard. Like, what do you say to that? You're welcome. I mean, it's
Mm,
really, I mean, he's changed our lives in so many amazing ways, but it's heartbreak at the same time, right? I mean,
right.
he lost everything he ever knew to become part of our family, and not out of our choice. I mean, we didn't choose for whatever happened with his family to happen, but for him to become part of our family is such a beautiful thing. But obviously, it comes with a lot of heartbreak to start.
Yeah. One of my friends just adopted a baby girl last year. And to hear the journey, I had no idea how much it takes to adopt a child.
Mhm.
And I always say it's such a gift that these kids are giving their soon to be parents, but also it's like you're having to put so much effort. Like deciding too, if it's an open adoption, a closed adoption. There's just so many elements that I didn't know about. Do you mind sharing your experience with the process of adopting?
Yeah, for each one, it was different. They're all so Noah's from South Korea and Millie and Ari are from Ethiopia. And it kind of changed over time. So Noah was a baby. Noah was 4 months old. And we chose, a lot of people say, why'd you choose South Korea? Well, we chose South Korea because two things. One, the kids at the time went into foster care and they also kept medical records. Now, my husband's a physician and that was important to him. Didn't mean anything because, you know, you have no idea. You have no idea what is happening with that. And so when we got on the plane to come home, he literally cried for 16 hours. It was an 18-hour flight. He cried for 16. There was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do. And it was crazy to deal with this. This is one of the things where I said that I thought I knew what patience was, right? I thought I understood it. And learning from him kind of changed my whole world. But, he was home for about 2 years and we decided that we wanted to do it again. And still with space in the minivan. And at the time, we couldn't go back to South Korea because the oldest parent couldn't be older than 43. And my husband's 10 years older than me. So he was 43 when we adopted Noah. So we couldn't go back again. So we fell in love with Ethiopia. And just the children there are amazing and beautiful. And they've gone through some kind of, probably horrific life experience that kind of has led them to be in an orphanage. And so Ari was 4.5, and we had actually requested an older boy somewhere between 4 and 10 because we've done the babies 4 times, right? We didn't need another
Right.
baby. And that was really impactful meeting him for the first time. And he's just a really amazing human. I mean, he's 20 years old now. He's going to college in North Carolina. He went through a lot, right? And 4.5 years old to be dropped off by your birth father and not understand what's happening and nobody comes back for you. And then the nannies at the orphanage have to explain what's happening. That's
Hard.
it's hard. It's traumatic. But when we were there, we knew we would come back one more time. We were like totally fell in love with the kids at the orphanage. And actually our daughters at the time, they wanted to spend all day in the baby and toddler rooms. So they would just sit there and hold the babies. And when it was time to leave, they were crying. There was a little boy that they had fallen in love with. And I was like, this doesn't work that way, guys. It doesn't work that way. That, they're already part of a family. They're just waiting for their family to come get them. But we decided we were going to go back one more time. And so a year later, we again requested an older boy and we were matched with Millie. And Millie was a little girl who was 2.5 years old. And I can tell you, she is the grand finale. She is just sweet and sassy. Now that she's 16, I mean, more sassy, right? But just is such a cool, fun, beautiful kid. And I love our family. I think that it's chaos, but I couldn't imagine it any other way. And yes, the process was tough. I probably have 10,000 pieces of paper from the 3 kids back and forth of everything. And it's important, right? You want to make sure that everything is legit and that it's going through the right channels. But it is a ton of work. And the amount of times I had to get up at 2:00 in the morning to call over to Ethiopia to make sure I could reach the office at this specific time was crazy. But in the end, it didn't matter. All of it was worth it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know a lot of people that are currently going through an IVF journey, but are considering adoption. And I just think adoption is such a blessing. And it's great to hear of like going to different countries and meeting those kids and seeing that they really need a home too. It's so important.
Yeah, they're amazing humans. And people are like, oh my gosh, but what if something bad happens? What if there's so many what ifs in life. It doesn't matter if you give birth to a child or you adopt a child. I think it just is all worth it. And like anything else, you have to put in the time, right? You can't,
Exactly.
it's not unicorn and rainbows from day one, right?
Nope.
These kids have gone through tough things, but if you want it, you do the work. And I can tell you that we have had the most amazing journey in our lives because of all of our kids.
Amazing. Well, I'm so appreciative of you just coming in, being real, authentic, and, you know, sharing your journey. I always ask this question at the end because I feel stress is more than just one thing. So I wanted to ask, how has stress saved your life?
Mm. It made me realize that it made me realize that I was capable of more, right? It's when you're stressed, it means that you have work to do, right? And so you do the work and then you realize, wait, okay, that wasn't so bad. I can do more. And so for me, I think that in certain situations, stress has gotten me to where I am today. So trust me, I don't want to be anxiety ridden, but I think there's a healthy bit of stress that shows that you're making forward movement.
Amen to that. Well, thank you again for coming on. I'm so appreciative. And please, guys, connect with Simone. Simone, where can they find you and how can they get your book?
So best way to find me is on my website, SimoneKnego.com. You can read more about my real method, which involves respecting your reflection, embracing your failures, asking yourself what you want, and loving the woman in the mirror. And you can find my podcast there as well with my daughter Olivia called Her Unshakable Confidence. And lastly, my book, you can find it basically anywhere online that books are sold. And I would love to hear from you. So if you read it, if you listen to a podcast, reach out because it's always nice to know that people are listening and reading.
Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Stress Free Solutions. I'm really grateful for all of the amazing feedback I've been getting this season. We're coming to an end, and I can't wait to hear your last takeaways from these episodes. So please share and once again, connect with Simone. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Remember to be kind to yourself on this self-healing journey. Take care. Thanks to Dan Lieber at Beckett Brown Music for the intro and outro music. You can keep in touch with me on Instagram at Sarah Elise Coaching. If you're looking to improve your health and wellness, check out my business, livewellenhanceyou.com. While you're there, join the Live Well Enhance You email list and receive exclusive offers for our wellness programs and events. Until next time, take care.